people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
De la noche, Stephanie Piñeiro.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this per tweet from Michael Benson. Josh Taylor versus Teofimo Lopez is very close to being agreed and could take place in Las Vegas, New York, or the UK, Bob Arum has revealed. He added that he believes it would be logical for Jack Catterall to fight the winner.
If the winner is Josh Taylor.
It's not that Teofimo Lopez shouldn't or wouldn't fight him per se, it's that there's more of a desire for Josh Taylor to right the wrongs.
And make the wrong things right.
You bailed on that guy, and there's a lot of people out there, they think you owe that guy a fight. In fact, they think that guy beat you and you made off like a bandit. If Josh Taylor successfully defends the WBO title, the only one that he's got,
The only one he's got left.
there is a sense of duty that he should
Yes.
fight Jack Catterall again.
Yes.
Lest we forget, that's who he was supposed to be fighting before this impromptu change of plans.
Yes.
You know what grabbed my attention?
What?
That Bob stated the fight could end up landing in Las Vegas or it could end up landing in New York. Either one of those locations, well, that would favor Lopez, the American national, more than Josh Taylor, the Highlander.
Up until recently, all the news reports have indicated that the fight would land in Edinburgh, that it would land in Josh Taylor's neck of the woods, that it would be in Scotland.
Now here's the thing. Unless I'm mistaken, Teofimo Lopez Sr., Teofimo's father, he's got a couple of priors. I wonder if that might be a hindrance to him traveling to a different country.
It might. That's what happened to Bill Haney ahead of the first George Kambosos fight initially. They didn't want to let him into the country, and at the last minute,
They gave him a pardon. They gave him a pass. In the 13th hour, they allowed Bill Haney to enter into Australia to be in his son's corner as he fought for the undisputed crown at 135 pounds. You wonder that there isn't a similar situation in play here with Lopez Sr., who I reiterate, unless I'm mistaken, he's got one or two priors.
prior convictions, run-ins with the law.
Is that why they're all of a sudden playing with the idea that they should do this fight in either New York or Las Vegas?
It could be.
But that's not all, folks. That's not all. For a long while now, I've wondered if Josh Taylor can enter into the United States. You know, he hasn't fought here since the Jose Ramirez fight, the undisputed title fight at 140 pounds.
You know, it's not just wondering if Lopez Sr. can enter into the United Kingdom. Can Josh Taylor enter into the United States?
A couple of months ago, after the United States Treasury Department sanctioned Daniel Kinahan and some of his cohorts, there was a story published that there was a list of 600 names, 600 individuals in connection with Daniel Kinahan who would not be allowed entry into this country.
Ever since that story was published, Tyson Fury, who we all know is good buddies with Daniel Kinahan, he was denied entry into the country 2 times. Savannah Marshall,
She was denied entry into the country. Now, what's the common denominator between Savannah Marshall and Tyson Fury?
MTK Global.
What's MTK got to do with any of this? Aren't they defunct?
Yeah, they closed their doors last year, I believe it was.
But the common denominator between Savannah Marshall and Tyson Fury is MTK Global that Daniel Kinahan helped found.
Yeah, he was the co-founder.
Coincidentally, Josh Taylor had some affiliation with MTK Global. So is it possible that the 600 individuals on that banned list, those who are not allowed to enter into this country in connection with Daniel Kinahan, is it possible that the name of Josh Taylor is one among them. Can he actually enter into the United States?
That's the question.
It's not one way. It's not just wondering if Lopez Sr. can actually enter into the United Kingdom. Can Josh Taylor enter into the United States?
The other question is, should he have to? He's the champion.
What do you want to do? You want to bring this guy over from Scotland so you can do this thing at the Hulu Theater?
You're trying to give Lopez an advantage.
Because he'd have one if Josh Taylor has to come to his neck of the woods. I didn't forget those funny-looking scorecards after the Ramirez fight. He dominated Jose Ramirez, but those scorecards...
Judges had it a lot closer than I did.
You'd think that Bob Arum is pulling strings to have Josh come over to this side of things because he wants to give Teofimo Lopez an advantage, and if he is doing that, why?
Set up a Devin Haney fight.
Haney versus Lopez in America is a bigger fight than, say, Haney versus Taylor. If Josh Taylor beats Teofimo Lopez, the logical fight for Josh is the Jack Catterall rematch.
Moving forward.
But if Teofimo beats Josh, the logical fight for Teofimo is Devin Haney.
Moving forward.
It's going to be interesting to see who ends up traveling to whose backyard, because whoever does will be at a disadvantage.
Home field advantage is a real thing. Don't let anybody tell you different. Home field advantage is why Josh Taylor still has that belt.
It's why he's still a quote-unquote unbeaten fighter. In men's light heavyweight news, former two-division champion, Hall of Fame inductee, and ESPN correspondent Tim Bradley says, no doubt, Bivol beats Beterbiev if they fight. Beterbiev has a puncher's chance.
Some people think Bivol wins. Some people think Beterbiev wins. Doesn't matter if they don't fight, though.
I don't think they're going to. Not this year, anyway. Tim Bradley was quoted as saying, Bivol's going to win this fight. There's no doubt. I mean, did you see how many shots Beterbiev got hit with? He got hit with flush combinations, and Bivol can do that all night. And when they do fight, or if they do fight, don't be surprised if you see Bivol step to Beterbiev.
Because if Yard can step to Beterbiev, there's no question Bivol's gonna step to Beterbiev.
He's gonna push him back, and he's also gonna fight him off the back foot, no doubt about it. So I'm telling you right now, Bivol's gonna be the undisputed champion this year. That was my big prediction for 2023, that Bivol will capture all those titles, and he will dethrone that man.
I like that Tim's not playing company man, towing the company line.
He's not doing that. The house fighter is Artur Beterbiev, and in spite of that, Tim is telling you the same thing I've been telling you. I like Bivol's chances in that fight. The one thing I think I disagree with Tim on is that the fight will happen this year. It doesn't look that way.
Maybe next year.
He got hit, Bradley said of Beterbiev. Did you see his face? I mean, he got hit with a lot of shots. Now imagine Bivol, how precise and accurate he is with his punches, how he maintains distance, how he has the high guard with the defense and the quick step back, pop, 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 counter. I mean, there's a lot to worry about with a fighter like Bivol, man. I want to see it, you know? I think that Beterbiev has a puncher's chance, no doubt about it. It's not going to be easy. He's going to take a lot of leather before he lands that one shot, but Bivol, oh, day.
Is there something that Anthony Yard does better than Dimitri Bivol? If so, what is it?
Because it ain't boxing, I'll tell you that. And that same Anthony Yard was able to get off a lot of punches on Artur Beterbiev. He was. He's not the operator that Dimitri Bivol is. Moreover,
The fight ain't next. Probably won't happen after next either.
when it comes to Artur, I've heard of no such news of Top Rank making a play for the Bivol fight to be his very next fight. And when it comes to Bivol, word around the campfire is that he's supposed to be fighting Joshua Buatsi at or around June in the UAE.
Joshua Buatsi, he's no threat to the undisputed title fight. I don't think he's got what it takes to beat Dimitri. I don't.
At minimum, I think Dimitri Bivol outpoints him. I think Dimitri makes it past him, though even if he does, all I keep hearing about is a Beterbiev versus Smith fight.
Callum Smith, Artur Beterbiev's mandatory challenger by way of the WBC. I hear more about that fight being Artur's next fight than Dimitri being Artur's next fight.
And if that ends up being Artur's next fight, once he's done observing Ramadan when he returns later on this year, well, that leaves the door open for Dimitri Bivol to take on Canelo for a second time in September.
168 or 175, wherever it happens.
Now, one fight that's flying a bit low under the radar, a fight of some significance, especially in this conversation, is the upcoming John Pascal versus Michael Eifert fight, what is being billed as an IBF final eliminator. The winner of that fight, whoever it ends up being, will be Artur Beterbiev's next mandatory challenger.
That's supposed to be going down in March, north of the border in Canada. Yvonne Michel, he's going to be promoting that show, and in all likelihood, they're going to show it here in America by way of ESPN+.
Bon Michel's got a content deal with Top Rank and ESPN.
So think about that sequence. You got Pascal versus Eifert for IBF interim status going down in March. Dmitry Bivol, he's supposed to be returning in June.
At some point, Artur is going to come back, and since it doesn't look like they're making a play to shoot for the undisputed title fight, if Dmitry Bivol is otherwise preoccupied, Artur ends up fighting Callum Smith, and by the time that he does, the winner of this fight will have already been announced.
The winner of Pascal versus Eifert. Essentially, by the time that Artur takes care of one mandatory challenger, another one will already be in the queue.
By that time, Dmitry might be preoccupied with Canelo, doing the rematch with him.
That sequence of fights in that order will make up their respective year, at 175 pounds. It's looking like the window of opportunity to do this thing won't come until the following year, in 2024. And how old will Artur be then? How much more wear and tear will he have amassed, assuming he can stay in the winner's bracket that long?
Barring unforeseen circumstances, illness, or injuries that might delay these mandated title fights that he's going to have, these mandatories he's got to satisfy, if he can make it through all of them.
Still going to be older.
You see, I don't think Top Rank is pushing to make this fight right now because they know Dmitry has more lucrative options on his own side of things. So whatever offer they'd make him, it would have to be substantial. And right now, maybe they don't think they can match it. Maybe they're just waiting out his contract with Matchroom, waiting for him to become a network and promotional free agent.
Maybe the only way they're willing to do this fight is if Eddie Hearn and Matchroom ain't involved.
Yeah, Bob Arum, Artur Beterbiev, Mark Ramsey, they can say what they want to say to the interviewers, but behind closed doors, where the deals get made, what are they actually doing to get Dmitry Bivol in the ring? What are they actually doing?
Are they petitioning the WBC for an exemption to the mandatory? Have they opened up a dialogue with Dmitry? What actual action?
You can say that he's cracking on, that he's got a Bulatsi fight that they're working on, but maybe they're working on that fight because you haven't contacted them.
You've got time.
It'll be some time before you have to fight Callum Smith. Callum Smith's got a fight coming up against Stipian. In all likelihood, he's going to make it through it, but it will be some months before it becomes about Beterbiev versus Smith. So why don't you use those months so it can be about Beterbiev versus Bivol?
Tim Bradley favors Dmitry Bivol to win that fight. I do too, but for more reasons than one. The other one is, it's not just the styles, it's the amount of time it's going to take to make this fight.
Time is on Dmitry's side, not Artur's.
And before you start up with the whole Dmitry's aging him out bit, I'll ask again. What is Artur doing? What is Mark Ramsey doing? Bob Arum? Todd Dubois?
What is Top Rank actually doing to ensure that this fight happens in a timely fashion before Artur Beterbiev turns 40?
Did you read something? Did you hear something? Did they petition for an exemption to the mandatory what? Did they email Eddie Hearn?
Because they need to. Dmitry's got time on his side. Artur doesn't.
They don't make a play to get Dmitry Bivol in the ring soon. He's just going to end up back in there with Canelo Alvarez for a second time. Canelo, who
was very recently quoted as saying, "I know I'm going to beat him in the rematch." Most don't seem to like Canelo Alvarez's chances in that fight, whether it's at 168 or 175. The second bout is ill-advised.
I don't begrudge Canelo Alvarez foregoing a rematch if that's what they decide to do. I think that at 175 pounds against 175 pounders, he's reached his ceiling. He's only human.
He's already, by and large, a more accomplished fighter than, say, Jermall Charlo, Demetrius Andre, David Benavidez.
These fucking slackers that are supposed to be so fucking great
wouldn't dare set foot in the men's light heavyweight division against a prime, unbeaten champion like a Dmitry Bivol. They wouldn't dare.
Hell, even the past-it version of Sergey Kovalev that Canelo knocked out is still better than anything you'll find on any of their resumes. There's no excuses for it.
I wouldn't begrudge Canelo Alvarez foregoing that second fight and fighting one of them. Alvarez, by and large, has grown to accept his defeat to Bivol, but has vowed to make things right in their eventual rematch. First things first, however, Alvarez will likely take on WBO interim super middleweight champion John Ryder on Mexican soil. Should things go according to plan, the 32-year-old fully intends on meeting up with Bivol during the second half of the year. But according to countless prognosticators, the Mexican star would be making a grave mistake if he opted to ditch his undisputed super middleweight throne once again to face Bivol. Alvarez, though, shrugs his shoulders as he plans on moving forward with their rematch. In the eyes of many, Bivol's tricky offensive output is simply too bemusing for Canelo Alvarez.
Too bemusing for Alvarez to handle.
Nevertheless, during a recent discussion with ES News, Alvarez revealed that in spite of his defeat, he isn't unnerved over facing Bivol again. In fact, he's overwhelmingly confident that things will be completely different this time around. In the first fight,
We actually saw really good defensive highlights from Canelo Alvarez, but it's in the offensive department where he was lacking.
in that fight, we saw Canelo Alvarez slipping, rolling, and riding punches, bobbing and weaving, doing his best as he could to stay out of harm's way, and he still did a pretty good damn job.
You have to remember, this is not a big guy. This is a guy who used to campaign as a junior middleweight.
He doesn't have the frame of a light heavyweight. In many ways, he doesn't have the frame of a super middleweight. He doesn't have the generous physical dimensions of a Demetrius Andrade, of a David Benavidez. He's not a big guy.
But he was still able to hang tough because he's a champion, with a champion's mentality.
A champion who was quoted as saying, "I know I'm going to beat him in the rematch, and I wish I could say the same, whether it's at 168 pounds or 175. I feel like Dimitri Bivol's style is just too tricky for Canelo Alvarez. The hope is that if Bivol were to drop down to 168 and make good on his claims that he can make that weight comfortably, that he can still do it, that maybe it would drain Dimitri enough that Canelo can hurt him.
So if he brought him down to 168 and he actually beat him, it would be a victory with an asterisk.
I'm not trying to be overly critical. I'm being honest. I think a lot of people out there, they'd be dissatisfied. They wouldn't respect it. They wouldn't respect it as much as if Canelo would go back up to 175 and take his chances.
Personally, I'd prefer he not fight the guy again at all. I'd prefer he call up Demetrius Andrade. You know, Demetrius, he didn't enter into a multi-fight deal with the PBC. That brief stint he had over there, opposite the ring Desmond Nicholson, that was a one-and-done deal.
On the undercard of Davis versus Hector Luis Garcia.
That's the word on the street, the word round the campfire. And if that rings true, I'd sooner prefer Canelo to take on that guy, you know, one of those more basic fighter.
Because let me tell you, you don't get sat on your back pocket by guys like Vanez Martirosyan or Desmond Nicholson because of how fucking dynamic you are.
Please.
I personally think he should be fighting one of those guys. Guy like Demetrius Andrade, maybe David Benavidez in September. One of those more basic fighters that are not as dynamic and proven.
I don't know what he can do differently in a rematch with Bivol.
But with those guys ain't never been in a high-stakes fight. Demetrius Andrade, David Benavidez. Are you kidding me?
Would say Jim Marzolo, but he's supposed to be on a bounce. He's supposed to be on a rebound, turn into action very soon in June, I think it is.
Who cares?
What adjustments can Canelo Alvarez make for a Dimitri Bivol in a second fight? What adjustments can he make for a rematch?
I feel like, if anything, that first fight will have only emboldened Dimitri Bivol to take even more chances now that he knows Canelo Alvarez. He's fought him before. He knows his limits.
He might be more dangerous in a second fight.
And Canelo, he's too brave for his own good. If you ask me, I'd rather it be Canelo versus Andrade and Beterbiev versus Bivol later on this year than these two guys fighting again.
I saw that already. I saw what I needed to see.
We don't really need to see that again, but we might.